they're just rolling out, but CCIP, which is cross-chain interoperability protocol. So
I feel like that's one of those things that will always be in development, but they've announced the launch of it.
Okay, so again, I'm gonna read off the definition that Sergey gave CCIP. I keep wanting to say CCPIP because of TCPIP, but it's CCIP. So this is a single internet of contracts where all bank chains and public blockchains can connect to each other. So if you think of like this bank chain that needs to talk to this blockchain, CCPIP is in the middle. If you have this blockchain that needs to talk to this blockchain so it can talk to this bank chain, CCIP is in the middle. It's almost like a central hub, right? And if you study the parallels or the growing pains that the internet had to go to, it's kind of the same thing that blockchains are going through right now. We're in the dial-up stages of the blockchain. So in the beginning, you had like people running different databases, network and technology that didn't connect to other databases until TCP/IP came along, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. And once that happened, all of these different internet servers and network providers were able to talk to each other on one internet. And that's how we're able to go from website to website, and even how we're able to send emails from one email provider to the next. Like, could you imagine how annoying it would be if you, like, let's say JT had a Yahoo and I had a Gmail, but in order for me to email him, I would have to get a Yahoo or he would have to get a Gmail. But TCP/IP makes it so that it doesn't matter what email provider he used, it's all connected, so he can email it to me.
Now, in a world where Gmail exists, I would never use a Yahoo, for the record. But anyway, go ahead.
Seriously. So before I talk about why this is beneficial to pretty much every major financial institution, did you want to touch on CCIP and your definition?
Yeah, so I guess I would look at it like this. So it's a standard for communication. So if you want to, for the people who already understand crypto and NFTs, for example, like the ERC 721, that's a standard for protocol within the Ethereum ecosystem. CCIP is a standard for communicating or transferring value across any blockchain or part of that network. And so you can look at it like that, as like you said, that central point. So yeah, now you can have smart contracts that are sent from one chain to another. Those commands aren't muddled, those commands aren't tampered with, and those if-then statements, they persist throughout the entire bridging process. So there won't be any hacks, there won't be any rerouting of information or anything like that, because you have that standard protocol in the middle and CCIP, which allows you to communicate seamlessly like that. So yeah, it's literally ultra valued effectively.
Exactly. That's a good way of explaining it. So why, like, everyone's talking about this vision of these large financial institutions. When I say large financial institution, I'm talking sovereign wealth funds, governments, central banks, family offices, large hedge funds, etc. Why do they even give a damn about being on chain? Well, faster transactions, greater security. Any company, no matter what it is, its biggest liability is its honeypot of data regarding its users and its own internal data. Like, you hear this company's getting hacked all the time that we don't even hear about, right? So getting on chain will kind of help solve these issues, but getting on chain isn't as easy as it sounds. Like, you have these companies that have technology that's been around for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years sometimes. So, and it's working to a certain extent. It's not so bad that they want to scrap it and start over. So they need something to connect it, right? So
yeah, a lot of them don't want to put money into the development of an internal private blockchain either, because then you have to put interoperability, you have to build interoperability within that blockchain, which is a complex task within itself, and it's going to cost a ton of money. So a lot of them, they don't even want to go through that.
Exactly.
So this literally eliminates that problem, and they don't have to create a blockchain to participate in a blockchain network.
Yeah. So going back to why these banks getting on chain. So with CCIP, these banks don't have to do that. They don't have to like start over. They'll get set up on CCIP, and like we said, this is a hub for integrating them with other banks and their own specific chains, because each bank will have their own chain, and we'll talk about that later, as well as other public and private blockchains.
Do you think this is something, to insert a question here, do you think this is something that will be adopted from the top down or bottom up? Meaning, do you think that larger banks will start to take advantage of this first, or do you think it will start from like smaller non-bank banks that leverage it, and then the larger banks start to see the value and take it on after them? What do you think about that? Because that changes the trajectory of the growth of this service.
I think it'll be bottom down, top up, and kind of meet in the middle. Like you already have smaller parties doing it, and you definitely have, like, we already know what's going on with Swift and DTCC that we're going to talk about later.
Actually, wait a minute. That's crazy that I just asked that question, because that question is answered throughout this video, actually. We're going to get to the Swift partnership, but that literally answers the question.
Well, in terms of like smaller players adopting it, it's mostly crypto protocol. So maybe top down, if you're talking about
100% top down. Yeah, okay. It's top down. This is, thanks to the Swift partnership, that changes everything, man. But anyway, we can continue.
Yeah. So CCIP will be able to connect automatically instead of them having to do it natively. And like JT said, first they wouldn't be able to do it anyway, right? Because it's going to be expensive. They're going to have to get it audited. They're going to have to retrain all of their employees on things that they've been teaching them for 50 years, which they don't want to do, like all these things. However, now they need to do it because this is where they're going to be able to access their liquidity, their customers, their users, other banks. So it's almost like they're going to have to do it. So individual banks are going to have their own chain, and they're going to need to transact with each other, whether if it's movement of a token or movement of data. And for those of you who don't know, we're going to get to Swift again. I feel like we keep saying that, but Swift is the largest protocol for transacting private key signatures in terms of value and data. Like Swift is also a messaging protocol.
So Swift, just to keep it simple, so they transfer capital back and forth between banks effectively.
Banks and major corporations, like with their corporate treasuries. Yeah. So basically the gist is, when it comes to like people creating applications, application creators don't want to create infrastructure. They want to create applications with the help of already stable infrastructure. So when it comes to like banks, I guess you can kind of look at Swift as the infrastructure and the bank as the application creators, because they're operating on top of it. The banks don't want to create a whole new blockchain and a whole new this. They just want to operate on something that helps them run their business more efficiently, or connect to something that helps them run their business more efficiently.
Exactly. But I was just going to add, it's funny when it comes to trust. We're not used to thinking about having to trust our bank, or having to trust that our transactions won't get rerouted or stolen when we do a bank transaction, right? So I use Bank of America, and like I use Zelle all the time. That's the platform that banks use to send money. It's like owned by all the large banks, right? If you guys haven't known that. And I never have, like, if I Zelle you cash or you Zelle me cash, I never fear that money will disappear in transit, until it happens, right? Because effectively what happened with SVB could happen with, I guess, any bank. But because, the larger banks are a bit different, they have the backstop of the Fed, so it really won't happen. But yeah, it's just not something we have to think about until someone's involved in a situation in which they lost money, like the FTX participants or even the SVB participants. Bro, you can almost, I wonder if there was data on this, how many people who had money locked up in SVB, like I wish we could track what was the percentage that had a sentiment change when it came to stable coins, and what percentage started going to stable coins because they would eliminate that risk of the fractional reserve from a small bank. Yeah, I just wonder what that number will look like. But yeah, we're not used to thinking about something like that. But even this right here, it eliminates like the second layer of trust, and I'm referring to CCIP. So obviously it eliminates the trust between banks within itself. So for the end consumer as well, it eliminates like two layers of trust that would normally be there when it comes to the counterparty. You got to trust your bank, and then the bank has to trust the bank that they're transacting with. And so this literally removes like both the layers of trust. So that's what, when he says trust minimization, I would say that's part of what he means.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So let's keep talking about CCIP, and let's talk about how it's evolving, just like the internet was evolving, and talk about the problems of like even at the beginning, TCP/IP had problems, right? So like basically, you know, we're talking about all these banks getting on chain and all these companies getting on chain. Let's talk about how Web3 works currently, and let's talk about the vision that CCIP have. So right now, and this is just like the previous internet, like when the internet came about and TCP/IP came about, it was basically the basis of what's called a client server model. The client is you, and the server is like basically just think of your website. So the client is the user, the server is the website. In the beginning, you had to like have all your servers and you had to like have firewalls so you wouldn't get hacked. Like imagine if you wanted to build a website, like you go on Wix right now, but back in the day, you had to go buy a server, learn how to set it up, have it running in your house, keep them all cool, make sure no one breaks in. You got to have like security. And then we had like Apple and Amazon and Microsoft. They pretty much, and Google have all these server firms. And now like your website is still on a server, but you just don't see it. Like they came through and they made it easy. What I like about CCIP is like they're offering that same service, but through decentralized networks so that the internet isn't owned by one company or a few companies. And like JT was saying at the beginning, these oracles are thousands of networks. It's not just one network, it's thousands of different networks. Okay. So it's like right now, how Web3 works is you have to, if you want to like do a transaction, let's say you want to do a transaction, you have to go to your wallet, you have to take the value out, let's call it a stable coin. Let's say you want to use an application on Arbitrum and it's on ETH. You have to put it in a bridge. You have to use a bridge. You have to take it out of the bridge. And that's if you use the safe bridge. You can use something like Stargate or another bridge, but you run the risk of being hacked. Okay, so that's one thing. You can shorten that part, but you do increase your risk. You put it back in your wallet, then you use your desired app. The value you get from said app, you have to go back to your wallet, take it out, do the bridge process all over again, take it out, and then you're done. CCIP has figured out a way to do that whole transaction in one fell swoop. Not only does it make it quicker, but given that it's all done in one transaction, you don't have to pay multiple gas fees, because every time you're doing that stuff, you're paying gas fees. You're saving time and you're saving money. Not only that, you're not going to have to go to that different chain, set up a new wallet, get a new public address. Like you're not even going to have to like do anything on that different chain. You just have your one wallet and CCIP, you connect to it, and now you can do all of your stuff.
Eliminating fragmentation increases security 100%. And that's what CCIP does. You're right, 100% on that. So with another feature of, you know, the Oracle network in terms of security and eliminating that fragmentation is that each Oracle is specifically designed for a service. And so let me split up two. So I'm going to talk about weather and talk about stock prices, for example. So let me use a more real world. Let's say real estate prices, for example, a price of a hard asset. So with weather, you're going to have a group of validators or oracles specifically designed to come to consensus on weather data. So these aren't values. These are like hard weather data. So you have the specific group dedicated to that. And then you have another group of validators or oracles that are specifically designed to track those real estate asset prices. And so there won't be any confusion. There won't be any, it eliminates the possibility of rogue actors as well. It also increases efficiency as well. And it increases, once again, the security of that particular service. So within itself, you can look at the ChainLink network like a constellation of oracles, basically. And each part of or piece in that constellation is specifically designed for a particular service.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's almost like the division of labor. Like we have all these cells in our body that does different things. It's the same thing with these Oracle providers. They are specified for a specific thing within, you know, TradFi or blockchain or Web3.